So I went to my local comic book shop today and I picked up a book. The book I picked up is this book right here. If you can see it, X-Men Days of Future Past. Overall, it's a good book. I'm not going to say it's a must have. I'm not going to tell you it's a book that you must pick up or you're missing something if you don't pick it up. It wasn't bad. I like this cover that I picked up right here. I'm pretty sure they have other variant covers. But the reason I picked this up is because it was drawn by Rob Liefeld. Now, I didn't, the comic book shop that I've been going to or that I went to today, they have their books already bagged. The comic book store I used to go to before I moved, their books weren't bagged, so you can kind of thumb through the book before you pick it up, which I kind of prefer to be able to do that because had I thumbed through this book, I might not have picked it up. Mainly because the art just wasn't my style. Rob Liefeld did the cover. I'm not sure how much this was done in the 90s, but I'm pretty positive it was done quite a bit where you have someone draw the cover and someone else draw the internal panels. Wasn't always a bad thing, especially if you get the right artist. The artist's name who penciled this book is Manuel Garcia. Yeah, I'm trying to get my pronunciation and names up. I'm trying. But Mr. Garcia did a very good job, but I don't think his art style necessarily fit the X-Men. Now, I'm kind of weird at how I judge X-Men. X-Men is my favorite superhero team of all time. I love X-Men. Now, I don't have infinite, instant recall of X-Men history like, say, a Comics Explained. If you listen to, I believe it's Rob at Comics Explained, that dude is X-Men Encyclopedia. I fully believe if they wanted to make a really good X-Men movie, all they would have to do is hire Rob, sit him down with the writer, have him go over all of the scenes and make sure they're accurate. That dude would be excellent. Marvel really needs to hire people like that and just focus on making good content. Anyway, I digress. The book was good. The art was decent, but this is how I judge X-Men art. And you're going to find this weird. This is just what I do. If the artist does not draw Wolverine adequately, I'm immediately put off. And that happened to me with this book. The way Wolverine is penciled, I'm just not a fan of. Now, again, that doesn't mean that Mr. Garcia's art is bad. His art is good. I'm not sure that his art fits the X-Men title. And, it may very well be slightly subjective, maybe wholly subjective. But I think there are certain artists whose art works better on certain books. And for X-Men, I think the art style that works is like a Whilce Portacio, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld. Who else can I think of? Brett Booth. I think Brett Booth's art style would work great for X-Men. But again, you have to pair the right artist and the right writer with the right team, because I think you could easily destroy a book, not really get the effect you were looking for if you just have parts and pieces that don't match. And I believe to some degree for this book, I'm not sure if Manuel Garcia's art is the right art for this book. Now, they had Mark Guggenheim as the writer, and I believe Mark Guggenheim actually worked on the Arrowverse for DC, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken about that, but I believe this is the same gentleman. Story was decent. There was I'll tell you this, right out the gate, there was a lot of people getting killed right out the gate. Them Sentinels were getting to work. So we'll see. I don't know if they're going to have the same penciler for all of the books. If they follow the pattern with some of the previous X-Men titles, like X-Men Gold and X-Men Blue, that might change up. I might do a review of some of my X-Men, I think it's X-Men Gold titles that I have. And in those books, some of it is drawn by Ken Lashley, who is one of my favorite artists. So I definitely might do a review of that. Those books came out maybe like 6 years ago, something like that, 5 or 6 years ago. Good, decent story and really good art. So I'll go to Marvel's website and kind of give you a little bit of insight into what this story was about. So X-Men Days of Future Past, July 12, 2023. Writer Mark Guggenheim, penciler Manuel Garcia, cover artist Jeffrey Shaw. So I guess this is the cover that I bought is an alternative cover drawn by Rob Liefeld. So it says, the cataclysm that leads to the X-Men's dystopic future. Return to the future in a tale that reveals the events leading up to the timeless original Days of Future Past story that inspired spin-off films and more. In a world where mutants are more than simply hated and feared, but not yet slain and apprehended, the assassination of Senator Kelly comes to pass, bringing with it the Mutant Control Act and Sentinels on every corner. But with mutant kind on the back foot, what lengths will Kate Pryde, Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, Banshee, Angel, Cyclops, Professor X, and the rest of the X-Men go to in order to find some way to survive? And what scheme of Magneto will bring about their ultimate doomsday? Witness the 30-year descent into the dystopic future, replete with previously untold deaths of key mutant characters, as we flesh out one of the most celebrated X-Men timelines in its own series for the first time. So again, good story, dystopian comic book story, which is done often, but it works, and I'm not necessarily against it. Now we have here some of the variant covers, and of course, this cover at the bottom, very bottom right, is the one that I got, the Rob Liefeld cover. So this is why I say it's always a good idea to thumb through some of the books that you pick up, because you can really be fooled by cover. Because looking at this cover, it drew me in. I saw the cover and I was like, okay, I gotta buy this. And I'm not necessarily saying you wouldn't be into the art, and I'm not saying that the art is not good. It's just not necessarily my cup of tea. But all in all, it was a decent book. For X-Men, I judge harshly. So in my opinion, X-Men should never release a merely decent book. You should pick up an X-Men comic book, and I'm not saying it has to be groundbreaking, but it has to be more than decent. Now, this is what I will give to this book. I will give it this. When you start out the book and you see the Sentinels chasing some of the mutants down, I'm not going to tell you who it's chasing down or who dies, but it really does kind of have you on the edge of your seat, the opening panels with the deaths. And I mean, it's right out the gate. I mean, it gets busy really quickly. So I'll give them that. I will say this is a story that I'm willing to give a chance. I'm willing to buy the next book and to see what's going to happen. I think it's at least worth that. Just not necessarily up to my standards for an X-Men book.